In this lesson, we will learn how to create and use function. Let's get started. A function is reusable piece of code that you can call whenever you need it. To create a function, you step out of the main function because it's already a function, so you don't create a function in the main function. So the fun tells Kotlin, I'm about to make a function. Just like we use the val tell Kotlin, I'm about to create a variable. Then the next thing is the name of the function. Then you follow it with this bracket. Then we have the open and close curly brackets. This holds the instruction you want to run. Once you create a function like this, then you call it. Creating a function alone does not make it run. You have to call it. To use it or call it, you come into the main function and then you call the name you gave the function, which is greet. So I'll copy that and paste here. But you have to add brackets to it when you are calling it. Then you hit on your run button and there you have it. So that's how we create a function. So this function, you can call it many times. Anytime you call this function, it will run this piece of code in it. You have it, hello, how are you, 3 times. Instead of writing this one 3 times, you just call this simply and then you get this response. Now we have this magical machine that can greet our users. Sometimes these machines require some input. Some machine, you can design them to take input. So in Kotlin, you give them parameters. Parameter is just a fancy word for inputs. So you can design a function that takes input or receive input. To create one, we'll create a new function called greetPerson. So we need the person name so that we can address the person by their name. So inside the function, you can print something like, and then we use the name. So this is the name that we receive and we are using it here. So we can say hello, welcome. All right, you see the first one, this is without inputs or parameters. But the second one, the same pattern, but here it takes input. And you realize that we are applying what we learned in the previous lessons. So we learned about data types and all that, but when we were declaring variables, we barely use the data type. But when you are creating a function with parameters, you must make sure you specify the data type. You can't send this input without specifying the data types. Now that we create it, you call it to use it inside the main. So we'll call greetPerson. Look at something. When we run it, we'll have an error, no value passed for parameter name. So what happens is that once you create the function, you design your function this way, it means it is expecting input. So wherever you call it, you must pass an input. And we said the input is a string. So it has to be in a double quote, Mauli. So try it and pass your name. And then you hit on run. So now you see the message, hello, Mauli. So that's it. You create, you pass the parameters, and then here you pass the argument. So there's a difference. What you specify when you are creating a function is called parameter. But what you pass inside, the inputs you pass, is called an argument. So I can call it again and pass different data like Charlotte. And when you run it, you get it. Hello, Charlotte, welcome. So not just one input, you can add more. And you can add of different types. For example, let me copy this. So I'll make a country. It's also a string. And this one will be greet person by country. So now we say hello Mauli, welcome to. So when we call this guy, I'll say Kuju. That's the first one. And then the second one, you separate it by comma. So country, I'll say Ghana. So when we run it, you get what? Hello Kuju, welcome to Ghana. You can specify like the name, the string, the age. And then you can say you are welcome to Ghana. And then say I learn. When you call it, you have to specify the number. So it's 7. So you run it. So that's it. Hello Kujo. And you must make sure you specify the arguments in order. So you declared your parameters as name, country, age. you must specify them in the exact order: name, country, and age. If you interchange any of these positions, you get an error. So let's try it and see. Let's bring the number first before the country. And when you run it, you get an error. It says, well, argument type. So argument, what you supply. Argument type mismatch. Actual type is int, but a string was expected. So what you gave it was an int, but a string was expected. And when you check here, it expects a string, but on the second you supply an int. So the actual value supplied is int, but it's expecting a string. So make sure it follows the same order. Comment out this one. If not, it will throw an error. So run it again, and then the error is gone. So you realize these functions, we declare normal function, we declare a function that takes input. Some functions can also return output. It's just like a blender. You put in your fruits and you get a smoothie. So if you want a function to return something, it's very simple. It follows the same syntax. Let's say you want to create a function that sums two numbers. So you go by the function name add numbers. So you pass first type to be integer, then you do the same for the second number. So now the body, for a function that returns something or gives back something, you must use the keyword return. And then what does it need to return? You can return the summation of the two. When the calculation is done, then you return. And once you return a sum, you also have to specify the data type of the sum. So you are taking inputs and you are specifying the data type. When you are returning outputs, you have to specify the type. So to specify the type is between these brackets and then the curly brackets. That's where you specify the type using the column as usual, and then it will return int. Because integer plus integer, the result is int. Alright, so to run it, we come to the main function and then you call the function which is add numbers. Now you have to pass the numbers to it. So first one is 7, second one is 3. So when you run it, you have what, 10, or we can have total. You call the function, pass the numbers, and now we can print the total. Okay, so you give us 10. So you can call it directly, or you can call it and it will return the results and save the results inside the total. And then now you print the total. So if you watch carefully, you see that this print we were calling since it was a function, and it's an inbuilt function created for us by Kotlin for displaying messages on the screen. So this is a function we were calling since, and that's what we've been doing. You can set default value for your parameters. Let's say we create a function that says hello. It prints the message hello. Now we want to pass the name of the person, so we add the second one. Now we have to specify the name here and then the type. Now when we call this, we have to supply the name, but we can set a default value to right inside the bracket. You set equal to, so we can make it guest. So you are a guest. So inside some application, you see that when you don't log in, they'll say new user or guest user, those kind of things. This is how they go about it. So now when you call this function, say hello, inside the main function, we say hello. By default, we're supposed to pass something. So I'll say hello, Amma. Then when we run it, we see the message hello, Amma. But this same function, we can call it without passing anything. And when you run it, you get hello guest. So if the user login, you can use the username. If the user is not logging, then you give it a default name of guest. So that's how you go about it. You create a function, just that inside the parameters, you assign the value to it directly. So if the name is not provided, it will use this one as a placeholder. Earlier, I told you that when you create a function with so many parameters like this, and you are calling it, you have to call it in that specific order. If you mistakenly interchange the positions, you get an error, and we saw an example. Kotlin has provided a better way of dealing with this issue. So let's say we create a function for introducing yourself. Now, to make it easier to supply value for these parameters when we call the function, we can use something called name argument. So when we call this intro function, instead of just passing the name Kofi, the age, when we run it, we get Kofi is 24 years old. But this same function can be called using name argument. So now that you have this, you can do name and then set it to this value, and then we have age, set it to this value. So it's just the same way of calling it, but this one you call it by the argument. So you see the value 24, let's change it to, so when you run it, there you have Kuiku 25 and then Kofi 25. So this name argument, instead of just specifying the argument straight like this, you can actually use the name that was given to it during the time you were creating the function. If you are using the name parameters, then you can call the function in any order. So we have the intro function, and then now you can say age is equal to 19, and then name is equal to, so when you run it, there you have it. Catherine is 19 years old. So with the help of the name argument, you can interchange the position of the argument. You don't have to follow strict rules by supplying the value in the order in which it was declared. You can use the name argument and then go the same way or interchange the positions, and it will work. Let's build a simple bill calculator, the one we talk about. You pass a price and then the quantity, and it will return the total for you as the bill. So let's create that function to calculate the bill. So inside we need the price, which will be double because price can be 1 cedi, 20 pesos, etc. And then the quantity, and then the type, which is int. So it will calculate and then return the result. So the results will be double. Once you specify the return type, you have to use the return word. Then return what? Now we can come here and call that calculate bill, and then we can pass 5 cedi, 50 pesos as the amount, and then we also pass 4. So we'll save it in a variable bill. Now we can print the bill, run it. Your total bill is 22 cedis. Now it's your turn. Write a function that takes a name, a subject, and prints Amma is learning Kotlin. Drop your version in the comments. Up next, we'll learn about collections. Subscribe so you don't miss it.